We actually just started.
Courts.
What were you doing?
Building
Court said they didn't do
started
enough,
a new job this morning.
beforehand. He justified turning it down, so they needed to have another hearing,
I've turned in my mother's hand,
do something.
Oh, yeah.
and you don't even know you're doing it. Someone look down.
Oh, gracious.
Call the meeting to order, the Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, February 12th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Tony Gokenbach.
Here.
Craig Scornia. Here. Mark Kleesner.
Here.
Mark Piontek.
Here.
Tom Holtmeyer.
Here.
Sandy Lucy.
Here.
John Borgman.
Here.
Chuck Watson.
Here.
Samantha Wacker.
Here.
Carolyn Witt.
Here.
Sal Maniaci.
Here. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Tonight.
Pledge allegiance. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2018 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? So moved. Item number 3, case number 180104, special use permit. Applicant is requesting approval of a special use permit to permanently remove the flag from a disguised cell tower located at A5 Cecilia Drive. Sal?
All right, yes, just to give a little history on this, this cell tower was placed on this property at 85 Cecilia Drive. People commonly know the building as the Big D building, the old Drogi building up top of the hill there. So back then in 2004, not only did the city have different regulations for approving a cell tower, but the state actually had different statutes for approving a cell tower. So it's actually gotten less restrictive. In 2014, the state passed a revised statute to actually lessen the requirements that cities can have on cell towers. But that's kind of neither here nor there. In 2004, the owner of this property was able to lease, and then the contract was able to build a tower without a special use permit because, one, it was an industrial zone district, and two, it was considered a disguised structure. When they put up a flagpole, it's considered a disguised cell tower, and it's no longer in the same category. And at that time, all they needed was a building permit. Now today, under the current code, if it's a disguised structure, you still can go with just a building permit in the M2 district. But because of the fact that they never got a special use permit, it was just a building permit. Now that they've come forward and they requested to have a new antenna put up and remove the flagpole, they have to basically retroactively go back and get their special use permit to remove the flag because it is no longer going to be disguised. With that being said, any owner of a cell tower throughout town that would come in, and we have a couple of these a year, if they come in and request an additional antenna on their tower, all they have to get is a building permit. It's just the fact that they're removing the flags that if they come back for a special use permit. We generally just can approve additional antennas as long as they have an engineer sign off on the plans and say the additional weight of an antenna is not going to obstruct or make it dangerous for the surrounding area because of the weight on the tower. Just to reiterate, that's the only reason they have to come back with a special use permit. So the property is located at 85 Cecilia Drive, laser pointer, the top of the hill there. It is surrounded to the north and to the east by residential properties. All of that yellow is single-family residential zoning, and then to the west it is zoned residentially, but that is Burger Park. And then to the south there are some duplexes that is also zoned single-family residential attached as well. So here's the plans that were submitted. It's going to go, obviously the location of the tower isn't changing, the height of the tower isn't changing. So you can see here are the proposed antennas that are going to be added to the tower. Right now it's a monopole that has a circular antenna that the flag does not interfere with. The proposal has antennas that come off the side, as you can see here, about, tell you the height. The height of the tower is 150 feet, but it's obviously the antenna is not going to the top. And according to the applicant, the new antennas would interfere with the flag, and so, or the flag would interfere with the antennas. I'm sorry. And so, in order to put them up and not be interfered with, they have to remove the flag indefinitely. And then, just to show this, this is the closest residential property line is approximately 116 feet from the base of the tower to the north. And then there is not a residential structure in the fall zone of the tower, but there is a industrial structure within the fall zone of the tower. But again, they're not requesting increase in height or change of location. So that's all I have. If you have questions for me.
I have one. Are they actually replacing the complete tower, or are they?
No, it's just an addition.
An addition.
And just an addition of antennas on the existing tower.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments by board members? Just a second.
Yep.
Just a second. Now we'll take questions from the audience. You can come up, introduce yourself and your address, and whatever you want to say, yay, nay, or have questions, let us know.
Yeah, Don Riekman, 2293 Brookview. I just had a couple of quick questions. And I think you answered one. Can the tower get taller so we get the antennas away from the population? But it looks like it's already been signed off. I'm guessing that would be a no. I had a career in a similar industry, telecom, so usually when you get to this point, it's kind of a done deal. But I think it would still be worth asking the question, could we separate the antenna further away from the people by going up? And I'm sure that would still interfere with the flag and still mean we remove the flag. My concern is getting these radiation levels too close to the folks that live around the tower. Now, with that in mind, my second question is how can the radiation be measured? The sign on the fence says it's applicable to FCC rules frequency emissions 47 CFR 1.1307 paragraph B. Okay. And when you go into that boilerplate, it's a little bit cryptic as to actually how to do that. So my question would be, based on my research, where do we find the monitoring schedule for the FCC limits? Is it actually the IEEE C95.1-1991? Does anybody know? Okay.
Sal might be the only one.
No, that's regulated through the FCC, so it's nothing that, you know, we don't require them to submit those readings to the city.
Okay, I think that we should.
You can't.
'Cause-
You can't. It's preempted by federal law.
The FCC doesn't preempt anything.
The regulation of those cell towers and their emissions is regulated by the FCC. We don't have any authority to regulate that.
Yeah, I just said that. I didn't ask you guys to regulate the tower. I asked, how do we get those measurements from the FCC?
You'd have to contact them. We don't have them.
Okay.
I think what Mark is saying, we don't have authority over the FCC
No, I understand
as the
that.
city.
I understand that. However, we're putting something that's poisonous in the neighborhood. A simple web search can verify that. Okay? So we should monitor that as a community.
And I think what we're expressing is the FCC is already monitoring that.
So am I.
So, okay, and sure, so if you have a
Yeah.
concern,
So,
you are
so if
free
I
to
can,
contact
so
the
if I can
FCC.
do that within the community, why wouldn't anybody else within the city want to take a look at that? And what I would like to see is a pointer to the IEEE standards that say, thou shalt monitor these facilities on this basis at this interval. Now, why would the FCC listen to me?
I don't think they'd listen to us either.
Does anybody on the board have a concern about the limits?
But have we ever asked? I'm just.
No,
curious.
I don't know of it. This has not come up in the last,
All right.
how many years I've been on the board.
So, as a subject matter expert in this field, I say we go and find out. for not just this tower, but the 5 I'm aware of. There might be other towers in town that I'm not aware of. Because we have populations with small children and playground equipment within 200 feet or less of a lot of these towers, based on my observations and photos.
So educate me a minute, okay? So do we have to request that information from the FCC, or do you go to a website and you find that information? Or you are a bit more knowledgeable about this than I am, and probably than most of us on the board here are. So you're going to have to tell us what's all involved in determining that.
Yeah, I think we need to look into it. My background was to actually design structure to contain the high-power electronics for paging, back in the old paging days when people wore pagers, and some cell phones, and a lot of central office equipment. And most recently, my last gig was internet room cooling products, okay? So not being an electrical engineer, you know, a lot can be lost on me. When I did do my Google search and I came up with the IEEE C95.1, the next step was, do you want to buy it? So, you know, do we want to buy that? I don't know. I really don't know. So I would think it would be a prudent question to go directly to Sprint, who has these people on staff, and say, when do you monitor? What type antenna do you use? What schedule are you on? And show us that you're within, you know, the legal limits. The United States and the UK have the highest legal limits in the world, and so at 1,000 watts per square meter. So let me check that number. 1,000 watts per square centimeter. 1,000 microwatts per square centimeter, 10 watts per square meter is the US legal limit and the UK legal limit. The other parts of the world, the limits are really down in the mud. I don't even know how they operate. So I don't have a problem with our limits, but it just seems like we should talk to the people who, at Sprint, have done both the lab measurements and the open field measurements. Those are things that I used to do on our equipment. Even though I was the mechanical, many of those emission issues were solved by wrapping sheet metal around it and other things. So I was there, I watched it, and over the years I actually got sick from it, from EMC poisoning. So I know firsthand it's toxic and that it's an issue, and we should address it.
Okay.
So I hope
So
you know, that answered the
someone here
question.
tonight from Sprint?
Sal, is there a representative on behalf of the applicant present this evening?
I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, there is.
Okay.
All right.
Fabulous.
We may be able to find more out later. We'll ask those questions, try to get answers to them.
Yeah, so ongoing, my request is that we monitor all our towers and that we put them on a schedule per the FCC. And I do understand we have limited authority, practically none at all, at the city level. So, you know, we don't have any muscle that we can flex in that way. However, the FCC is pretty exacting. In our equipment, if we were interfering with police or emergency broadcast frequencies, they could come and shut our equipment off. So it was very important that we made sure that we met those limits and that we continued monitoring that in a production capacity on an ongoing basis. And not just say, oh, we passed once and wave our hands and walk away and just let it go. Because, you know, these are important issues. These are important issues for our children. This is a type of toxicity that can cause various forms of cancer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm still digging.
Hi,
Hi.
Hello.
my name is Robert Ulrich, and I live on Brookview Drive, right kind of behind that tower there. My comments are about the flag. One of the highest points in Washington, I think, is that flag, and as people drive in on 100, they see that flag flying, and I think that means a lot. It means a lot to me. When I first moved into the subdivision, I don't think the tower was built. It was in the process of being built, and that the flag that they had at one time was probably 4 or 5 times larger than the one that they've got right now. It keeps getting smaller and smaller. And I just, my dad fought for that flag, and my grandfather fought for the flag. My son fought for the flag. And that's why it's important to me. And I think that the flag should remain. If the configuration of the tower has to be changed, then perhaps it needs to be a little taller with the flagpole on the top. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. So I'll try to address a couple of the issues that have been brought up. I'm not an RF engineer, so I can't really speak to numbers that he was bringing up in specific FCC provisions that regulate that. But I can say that it is a highly regulated industry, and the FCC works with other groups such as OSHA, EPA, and some others to monitor and come up with safety standards for this industry, and that Sprint is in compliance with those standards, and they'll be operating under compliance with those standards throughout the time that they're on the tower. To address the flag, the reason why the flag does have to come down is, as was mentioned before, we're adding those antennas to the outside of the tower. The reason being that Sprint had identified the area around the tower as being underserved and having some capacity and coverage issues. And so they examined how they could address those issues, which required an upgrade to the equipment. And that upgrade involved new antennas. And the new antennas are too big to go inside. So whenever you see that pole now, there are antennas actually inside the structure. And the antennas that they need to add to improve the coverage and the capacity in the area are too large to fit inside. And if they tried to expand those canisters, it would make the tower structurally unsound. So they really don't have any other option but to put the antennas on the outside and bring the flag down because it would interfere.
Is this the only tower that is owned by Sprint in Washington, or do you have other towers?
This tower is actually owned by SBA. They're a tower company. Sprint is just a tenant on the tower. And I'm not sure, to be honest, if Sprint has another tower in the area, but they don't have another tower that services this area specifically.
So that would be the only one in
It's
Washington? The only tower that Sprint is on in Washington?
They may have other towers in Washington, but when I say this area, there's a coverage area, and I don't know specifically what it is because it depends on the height of the tower and the topography and different things as to the service area for a particular tower. But one tower would not generally be able to cover the entirety of Washington, Missouri. So they probably have another one somewhere around here. I don't know specifically what the location would be, though.
Ma'am, I don't think I caught your name at the beginning.
Sorry, Ashley Wessel.
Okay, so you're not the applicant. You're not the person who signed the application.
No, I'm not the one that signed
Okay.
the application. Here
Okay.
on behalf of the
And do you have any information about what the change in the environmental impact would be with these new antenna? So obviously there's a tower there now, so there's some impact that we would certainly hope is in compliance with regulations. But what is the change in terms of what's being put out there with radiation or potentially harmful environmental impact?
I don't know what the change would be. If there is a change, I don't know what that would be, but I do know that it would still be in compliance with the FCC standards.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Tony.
Do you know what the intent of the applicant is when it is regarding the flag? What are they doing with the flag once it's down?
It just won't go back up. I don't know what their intent with the flag is
Okay,
specifically.
well, maybe if they could donate it to a worthy, American Legion or something, where if they wanted to put it up on a pole, they could do so, or just consideration.
Sure, I can bring that up with them.
Thank you.
Any other question, comments?
Just some comments, but you can sit down first.
Okay.
Thank you.
I did some quick, Chuck and I have been going back and forth on our cell phones, doing some quick research, if you want to call it that. And there is a lot of information out there on the web about cell phone tower radiation. Numerous studies that have been done all over the world, and the first one that I came to said that people that lived within, I believe it was 50 to 150 meters of the base station experienced some of the symptoms of EMC radiation. And that computes to about 500 feet from the site of the antenna generation. I don't know if we have homes that are that close here, but the article also goes further and says you get also radiation from your microwave oven. Our environment with cell phone and all the computers and routers and everything else that everybody has in their homes, you pick up a cell phone and talk on it, you're exposing yourself to radiation. So it's really difficult, from what I just quickly found, any information that specifically says that it's hazardous to the health if you're within a certain range. Obviously, if you just go up to the tower and sit on the tower, it might be hazardous, but 500 feet was the closest I could find on anything here. The others are all further away than that. So just, I think it's something we need to learn more about, but the tower's been there. I mean, it's a thing of society lives with. The gentleman brought up some very good points. Mm-hmm. I think that, we probably have never considered, but I don't know if it's anything that, we can really address as a commission either.
Right.
So.
Can I reply?
Well, in a little bit, yeah, you can come back up. Go ahead.
Oh, Tom Fenner. I didn't know this was on the agenda. But one thing that I'm concerned about, just to say, is that do I understand that the flag, there will no longer be a flag out there?
Correct.
That's what's being
There's
proposed.
going to be no, well, I had a number of people, it just came to mind, I had a number of people over the years said, oh yes, that's Washington, you've got that big flagpole out there. And I agree with what had been said. That's not an appropriate size flag to fly on that pole, and the things have been getting smaller. I really hate to, I'm just expressing myself, I kind of hate to see the fact that we're not going to have a flag out there anymore. And if we do have a flag out there, I would sure like for it to be big enough, rather than the little bandanas I've seen flying up there occasionally. Now, I know they, as a company, would be tickled to death not have to put a flag up there. That would just tickle them no end. But think about that. I agree totally as far as the veterans are concerned. I'm a veteran. And I like that flag out there. And I like it to say that if we're going to let them have something like that, why not have a flag up on top of it? They could do that. They just don't want to climb up there and change it. That's what it boils down to. And I don't know. I think you ought to give that some consideration. I think there's a number of points that have been brought up tonight that certainly if I were sitting in your spot, I think I'd send it back for a little bit further review, a little more information, a little more research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Are you going to address that? So I just wanted to reply very quickly. Once again, my name is Don Riekman, and I wasn't going to pull this out, but on the, and again, I don't consider that I've done an in-depth research of this because there's people, on Sprint's payroll and SBA's payroll to actually monitor this stuff. So I don't want to say, oh, I know better than them. They're the ones that are going to know the best. The little bit of research I've done in the International Journal of Research in Engineering and Technology. September 2013. It goes into what that community, and again, this is the international community, and you got to remember that our limits are higher than the rest of the world by a lot, okay? So these folks are more conservative than we are in this country. And I'm not complaining about the limits that we have. I've been measuring those for the last 25 years, and that's how I choose my residence, is by U.S. legal limits. These folks, being more conservative, are saying that for a sleeping area, that they should not, the radiation should not exceed 10 microwatts per square meter. Well, that relates to 0.004 milligauss. I can't even measure that. That's just so in the mud that it doesn't make any physical sense to me. And that number relates to 394 feet for a sleeping area from the base of the tower. And you just look at that up there and you can tell. We've got a stick there that says 116 feet. That means we've got sleeping areas within 230, 250. Much less than the recommended 394. But I'm not the expert. So that's why I say we could go talk to Sprint's people, we could talk to SBA's people, and have them tell us how they comply with the FCC. We can't hold them to the international community, but we can ask for the numbers. You know, what frequencies are you transmitting at? That makes a difference. How far away the power falls off from the base of the tower or the actual point of the antennas. So it's really worth getting into that. Because the bottom line is, where's my safe sleep area? Where do I put my kids' beds? Okay? On a personal note, I won't buy a home within 2 miles of high-power tension lines, as an example. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Steve Underwood. I briefly just want to share two concerns with some points to each. And Don has done a good job of addressing the health question. My home, if you look at the top of the red stick, is the one just to the west of that, kind of off the corner. So right there. Yep, that's where I live. So naturally, I have a considerable concern. My kids have moved out, but my wife and I plan to be here a while. We would like to see if there's any way we can monitor the effects of the radiation and somehow have a way of making sure that that is within a certain range. Like Don, I don't know the limits, the FCC rules, and all that sort of thing as far as that goes. But any way we can monitor that so we know that we're within the safety range, that would be I would like to see the city pursue that. As far as the flag goes, yeah, I would. This may sound odd, but I've had a lot of issues with the flag. The rope itself, but I love the flag. When I come into town from any direction, it is the first thing, one of the first things you see. It's attractive. I think it says a lot for our community. You know, I have other people that have said the same thing to me. You know, we love to see the flag when we come into Washington, that sort of thing. My issue with the flag is that the rope slaps the post when it's windy, if it's not tied off to a fence post or something off to the side. That sucker has woke me up a lot of nights, and it's maddening. So if anything at all, just be sure whoever's dealing with that flag can address that issue and keep it tied to the post. That would be terrifically appreciated. I don't mind the flag flapping itself. To me, that says America, okay? It's that rope slapping. It sounds like somebody hitting a 55-gallon drum outside your bedroom window at 3 o'clock in the morning. Not pleasant. So those are my concerns, issues. I would love to see the flag again if we can just monitor that it's safe, that close to residential, a lot of kids in that neighborhood. And so that's really all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry, can I?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when the flag was put up in 2004, the neighbors in the area were told, okay, this is going to be a flagpole. It's going to be disguised. You're not even going to know it's a cell phone tower. One of the first issues we had when they turned the lights on and everything's go was the lights on that basically flooded the back of the neighbor to my east, their home. And I understand, I guess, apparently it's still going on with some having issues with that. I haven't talked to a neighbor myself that has said that, but Don, you have. So anyway, so that's apparently another issue. But kind of going back to the rope thing, Don Peters was the building inspector at the time. I worked with him. We made arrangements before they signed off on the permission, I guess the occupancy permit or whatever they called it at the time, and it was agreed that they would tie that to a post. A lot of times it's not done. Probably 80 to 90% of the time it's not done that way. Well, in times if I'd have had a long enough knife or hatchet, I would have cut that rope if I wasn't concerned about the flag. You know, that was my own. But you know, I've actually climbed over the fence, even though it's barbed wire. Don't ask me how I do it. I just do it, and tie that thing off myself. It's that maddening. So anyway, that's if the flag stays, and I hope it does. We certainly need to keep an eye on that issue as well.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Sean Kestring, and I guess I would like Sprint to respond to why is the antenna being put at 120 feet when the pole is 158 feet? If the flag is being removed, why can't the huge antenna be put at the top, thereby, you know, increasing the distance between the monster antennae and the radiation and the people around it? Do you know?
We'll get the answers for you. If you're addressing us,
yeah,
not them directly.
Okay.
Thanks.
So that's a concern of mine, because if they're going to move remove the flag, that's their plan. Why not shift it all the way to the top? And my concern is that their plan is they're putting it at 120 feet, and then in the future their plan is to put another one, and then another one, and continue it on up. Because otherwise, I mean, it could be that it wouldn't be structurally sound to have all that weight go even higher up. But I just have a concern that is this phase one of the new huge monster antennae and stuff that are being put up. And again, just like other people have come up and said, before putting these new antennae up, I would want Sprint to show us that the new level of radiation from those new antennae are not going to exceed FCC limits. You know, it's not just them measuring what it is now, it's what is the additional radiation that's going to come. And my guess is it's going to be huge if they're so big that they can't even be contained in a structure like the others have. I mean, the others are, you know, inside the cone, and I would just guess that that's going to really increase it a lot. So the further away it could be from everybody, I think, you know, I think the better. So anyway, I guess I just don't want to say, okay, yeah, well, cell phones, that's a thing of the future and whatever, and just whatever they want to do is fine. I think they need to prove them and themselves. And I do have a cousin who's an electrical engineer and worked for MCI for a long time. And unfortunately, I was going to try to get him to look at this, but he had a medical emergency in his family, and he had a lot of information he wanted to share for when he worked with MCI, and a lot of, you know, radiation issues that were never made public. So my husband's a mechanical engineer, not an electrical engineer. So that's, and before we moved to our home at 2293 Brookview, and we're not near as close as, you know, some of the, Steve is, you know, he's way closer and he's higher up. We asked my cousin to do calculations on it to make sure that we weren't, you know, that it wasn't, you know, going to be toxic, I guess, to live there. So thank you for your consideration.
Sure. Anyone else?
Would any of you like my home phone number?
Sure.
The Google number, area code 773-599-0234. And that phone will take a message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, my name's Bill Holmes, 2275 Brookview, and we just moved into the neighborhood about 6 months ago, moved here from California, and I guess two concerns. One, the EMC issues, RF issues, which Don and everybody has covered. That would be our one concern. The other concern is the aesthetics. I mean, we were impressed with the neighborhood when we moved in with a nice big huge flag right across the street. I live right across from Steve, just on the other side of Brookview there. And good landmark, makes you feel proud to live in the neighborhood. Taking that down, adding antennas, maybe additional antennas, the aesthetics, I guess, would be our main concern. And vis-a-vis, you know, home values. You know, we had a nice aesthetically pleasing item in the neighborhood, and then all of a sudden we're going to have a multi-antenna, you know, stick coming up just 150 feet away from us. So that'd be my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Ashley Wessel, reminder. Address a couple things. First, the aesthetics. So what they're doing, and there's a photo simulation that was submitted with the package, is they're putting, so these are the 3 new antennas here that they're putting onto the tower, and what they're doing is they're flush mounting those, which means they're basically putting them as close to the existing pole as they can go. So sometimes you'll see other towers that have kind of big arms and brackets. It kind of looks like a big triangle with all the antennas around there. That's not what they're doing here, because they are trying to keep the aesthetic changes to a minimum and keep the design as close as it is already, with putting those antennas as close to the pole as they can with the flush mount, and painting them to match the existing color so that they'll hopefully, you know, they'll blend in pretty well. And it won't change the look of the tower very much. And the other issue I was going to address is, why are they not putting the antennas farther up on the pole? I can't speak to that directly because I'm not sure what other equipment is currently on there. But some things that I know from similar projects would be, there's existing canisters that are up at the top of the pole. Those are the canisters I mentioned earlier that the antennas will not fit into. And so that would require structural modifications to go up there, try to take those down if they can, and work a different type of design. The other issue could be that there may be existing antennas already up there. for other carriers or other people that are already on the pole. And so obviously we can't go where there are already antennas existing. So those are a couple things that could be at play there.
Do you think you could, we could get information from Sprint about the monitoring and the levels?
I have not ever had to request that before, so I can ask, but I can't say as to whether that's how that works, how that would play out, I guess.
Okay.
Yes, to speak to the flag issue as well, what measures have been taken to determine whether it's possible to incorporate these new antenna while keeping the flag?
So they determined the location of the antennas is basically right under where the existing canisters are, because Sprint is going to be trying to get as high onto that pole as they can, because that's going to provide them with better coverage and help with the coverage and the capacity, which are the issues that they're trying to address. And so by being higher up, that's what's affecting the flag. I mean, whenever the flag is, not waving in the wind and it's just hanging down, that's where the issue is it's going to reach the antennas and cause interference there, possibly cause, we don't want it to get wrapped up in the antennas, cause any kind of issues with that either. So that's why.
Any other questions or comments by board members?
How complicated is this wiring to the antennas? Could it be that the fact that the wire is only so long that they can't raise the antenna up?
As to how high the antennas are on the pole?
Well, that's where they initially put it. They can't raise it now because the line's only so long. That's what I'm guessing.
The line from the antennas down the pole? I'm not sure I understand the question.
You have ground here.
Yes.
You have antenna up here.
Yeah.
Why would you put another 30 feet of line up here if the antenna's only this high? You can't raise it 30 feet because there's no line to go up another 30 feet.
Well, they can, whenever they order equipment, they can customize the type of equipment that they order to fit the design.
That's what I'm asking. How complicated is that line?
You mean to order different equipment to raise the, I don't.
Is it a 2-wire wire or is it a 100-wire wire? How many wires are in that going up to that antenna?
How many wires?
Yes. How complicated is that line?
They have 1 fiber cable and 3 hybrid cables that will be running up the tower.
So it's a fiber optic then?
Yes.
So it could be 2,400 wires within that.
I don't have any other details on that.
Thank you.
I have one other quick question. Are there other vendors above you on that 120-foot elevation?
I don't know for sure because it's not listed on these drawings here. Whenever they do these drawings, they always make them specific to the construction that's going to happen.
So is this your first set of antennas on this pole?
On the exterior.
It's the first set that will be going on the exterior.
Okay, so you already have an existing set at the 150-foot level?
Yes.
Are there multiple carriers on a pole?
Yes.
Oh, that's
I know that for a fact, because we
Okay.
did
Okay,
at the
I'm
city
sorry. I thought that
fire
was the
station,
question.
there is.
Okay.
Okay. So I can understand that you don't have any, you can't just go into another carrier's territory and
Right.
just move yours up 20 feet just for the sake of doing that, because that may be another carrier's territory
Right.
that you would be up there. So you either have to stay at the 120-foot or go all the way to the top where you currently are at the 150-foot.
And I believe that,
In reference to trying to raise the pole and get that distance further.
mm-hmm. I believe that they are keeping the antennas at the 150-foot level, so they'll be adding 3 additional, so they're not removing
So they're
the
not
ones that are already
removing
at
the
top.
ones that are already there, you're adding additional. So
Correct.
that adds more of the radiation that would be putting off then, rather than what is currently there.
Not being an RF engineer, I cannot speak to the
I
radiation
understand.
issue. I'm not
just-
sure if that's how.
Common sense would tell me that.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if that's how that works.
And ma'am, can I ask, how many customers are affected in our area by this? I mean, just to give us a sense of how many people in our community are customers of Sprint that you are complaining or are having deficient service because of the current situation?
I do not know. I just know that they've had an issue with people complaining about service in the area. I don't know how many people.
Okay. I mean, I'm trying to determine, is it one or two people? Is it hundreds of people? Is it, I mean, I don't.
It wouldn't be one or two people, because they have areas that they're addressing that have a lot more people that are affected. So it wouldn't be just one or two. It would definitely be a greater number for them to prioritize the site. But I'm not sure how many people.
I wouldn't think so, but I'm just trying to get a sense. I mean, obviously, we have people here.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you.
I think Don's wife had one more comment.
Yep.
I'm beginning to think I'm getting too old for this.
Can we request?
I don't want to admit to it. Tom Fenner again. I don't own any property there. I just would comment to you that they're here after 9 years or whatever it was when they first came in, and they wanted to change it. I will tell you they'll be back again to change it again to something more up to speed, something latest whiz bang that's out, and there's new whiz bangs coming out every day. So be careful of this because you are really setting some precedences. This means that all the other antennas here that are inside the community, and they'll be back. They will be back, and they're going to say, well, now, wait a minute. You did this for them. We want this done for us over here. So be very careful about this. That's my only concern. Going back 25 years ago, when I was involved with the commission, the county commission, we had the first tower come in. And we had to be very careful about where we were putting it. Then all of a sudden, it just became put them on every street corner. We even had one on top of the old Deb shoe factory, if you can remember that. They've torn that down. So maybe in this case, maybe this one ought to come down. The nature of the whole area has changed. You certainly can't call that an industrial area anymore. It's a residential area. Think into the future. They're going to be back. They're going to hang more stuff, make it bigger. It got so out of hand down in Tampa, Florida, and also in Raleigh, North Carolina, that they put them up and they look like a redwood tree because they're all decorated as a tree, trying to hide them and make them more adaptable for the community. And they stick out like a sore thumb and are really not very attractive at all. At least this thing is up and it shows as a flagpole, and it's attractive when it's going. But they're going to be back. They're going to be back time after time, as well as the others. So be very careful. You are going to be setting a precedent as to what could take place here in this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to address that real quick, setting the precedent, this is only for removing the flag. If a company were to come in on an existing tower in town right now, we approve those internally and there's no special use permit. We cannot disallow someone or deny someone from putting up an additional antenna.
And is that
No, I'm just
because of
saying that
state
they're going to be back
legislation?
doing this, asking this tower again.
Yep.
They'll be back to have this tower be more antennas, more stuff be hung onto that tower, that location. That's going to happen to each and every tower you've got here in the community right now.
Well, that's what he's saying. This tower is specific with the flag, where other towers, they can come in and it's
Understand
not.
that.
So, yep,
I
we
understand
understand
that.
your point too, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let me ask this, Sal, just for clarification. Let's assume for the sake of argument that the owner of this tower decided to rip it down.
Right.
And then they decided they wanted a new tower. tell us what they have to do.
If it's not disguised,
Right, if it's not, let's say they tear it down tomorrow, and they decide in the exact same place they want to put a new tower up that's not disguised. What do they need to do?
they'd apply for this, actually, the same application they did this time. They'd apply for a special use permit, they'd show the site plan showing where it'd be located, the distances from properties on site, and then adjoining properties if there's a house within the fall zone, or a structure within the fall zone. We are no longer allowed to require RF studies, or we're no longer allowed to require to co-locate, if I'm interpreting that correctly, Mark. Right. So it's really just a site plan of where it's going to be located and how many antennas are going to be on it, and engineering structural plans that show that it's a stamp and seal that it's meeting building codes.
Okay, so tell me again, would they have to come though for a special use permit?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless it's disguised.
Okay.
They would not.
Okay.
And it's the same application they did with this. The information they provided this time around, once we told them, hey, once you take the flag down, it's a special use permit, the information they provided is the same information they'd have to provide if it were a brand new tower. It's just they would actually have to designate where, they'd have to show how far away it's going to be from property lines, from structures. They didn't have to do it this time around because it's already existing.
Mm-hmm. But now, go back again, because you said something that I want to clarify. If they wanted to build a new one that was disguised, do they need a special use permit?
No.
Okay. So they could build a bigger one, a stronger one that puts out a zillion times more radiation. If they disguised it as something, no special use permit, no hearing with this board?
No, it's all approved internally. If FCC approves it, the city approves it.
Okay.
I just want to point out a couple of things. When they changed the law in Missouri a couple of years ago, some of the things that you cannot do is require them to submit information about or evaluate their business decisions with respect to design service, customer demand for service, or quality of its service to or from a particular area or site. You can't require them to evaluate other possible locations. You can't dictate the type of wireless facilities, infrastructure, or technology that they're using. You can't require environmental testing, sampling, or monitoring requirements for RF exposure. You can't require them, or you can't establish or enforce regulations or procedures for RF signal strength or the adequacy of service quality. There's a whole list of things that you can't do. And a lot of the questions that I heard asked tonight fall under those categories. So
I think it comes down to
Where
whether
it
you
is.
want the flag to stay there or not.
that's right.
That's what we-
That's it.
That's our legislators at work.
That's,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, come on up.
Once again, Don Riechman, and I disagree with Mark Pontiac. Piontek.
Yes. Well, I'll cite you to the statute if you want to look at it.
So you cited state of Missouri statutes.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm talking about the federal government.
And we have to comply with state law as well. There are
State and federal.
specific statutes under Missouri
Yeah.
that says, for example, it starts out, in order to ensure uniformity across the state of Missouri with respect to the consideration of every application, an authority shall not, and then it goes through this whole list of things. And we are, an authority means each state, county, and municipal governing body, which is this.
So who would have to challenge?
Who would what?
Who would have to challenge? You say your hands are tied, you're not allowed to challenge, you're not allowed to request the data even though it's available. You're not allowed to see it, but who is?
If it's available from the FCC, go for it, go get it.
No, I'm saying.
We
I
can't.
said,
we
who's
can't-
allowed to challenge? Who is allowed to?
I don't understand what you want to challenge. I don't
allowed to
understand
ask
your
for the
question.
Let me talk to you after the meeting.
No, are
No.
you saying that
Oh.
you want to ask for the information?
I mean, are you asking who can challenge a decision of
I
like
think we have
the
a
state
problem.
statute
Yeah,
or?
No, who can challenge that an entity, Sprint, is within FCC limits when they may not be? Because clearly, you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
Yeah, but I think any individual could.
Any individual
Like, just
could.
like you would EPA or,
A governing body cannot, according to that.
So if you
I
think
think-
basically that they're not in compliance, you can go and challenge them through FCC.
So if you as one of the boards that we have was aware that we were out of compliance, what action would you folks take? None? None you could, none you could take in your...
None.
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 This is not that type of forum for that.
Because the state statute is saying that we
That you
cannot do anything
cannot.
about that. We can't
Correct.
ask for that information
Correct.
and then,
Contact your legislature or
yeah.
No, it's just, we're not allowed to consider those matters in making a decision.
Oh, yeah, I hear that.
That's what
Yeah,
he's
I
trying
hear
to
that.
explain.
No, I understood that before I came up here. I'm just, my wheels are turning as like, how do you, motivate a community to go, well, that's unacceptable. Because it literally is unacceptable.
Yep.
These folks are free to poison the airwaves. And, it's public domain, but they're treating it as something other at this point, because it's been granted by our state legislature.
I can appreciate what you're saying, but this isn't a forum for it, so we'll have to move on. We can.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think I got my answers.
Mhm.
Okay, thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sean Kestring again. I was just thinking, looking at that drawing, it looks like the very top on the dimension at the very top is 156 feet, not 150. And 150 is down slightly, and then 120 is where they want to put the antenna. So what I'm wondering is, say that, whatever, just say that the flag is slightly smaller than what it is now, so it would not get caught in these antenna. If you look at the picture, if that flag is in proportion to the pole, that flag is huge. It could be smaller than what it is. It doesn't have to be the monster that it is, and if it were smaller, you could measure it so that there would be no risk if it blew, if it went straight down, that it would get hung up on the antenna. I'm just suggesting it as a possibility, as a compromise kind of thing where the flag could be maintained. And, if now with the Missouri statute and all that, what you've raised, if that flag could just be made smaller. It doesn't have to be so big as what it is. But again, if the flag is maintained, I think that I don't know whose responsibility it is then. Is Sprint wants to take it down? Is it their responsibility to maintain it so it doesn't clatterbang all through the night and keep the neighbors up, and then the spotlights, are in people's homes to the point where they, it's bright, like they're in outer space or something? Because I know from talking with Steve that he said the city of Washington ended up doing, the fix on the flagpole, pulling, the cord out to the side, and that Sprint or whoever owns that tower and was responsible for it didn't do it as they said they would. So.
Ma'am, question. How would they raise and lower the flag if those antennas are on the outside of the...
Oh, they wouldn't have to lower it.
No, but sometime or another, the flag's going to get worn. You're going to have to lower the flag to get it changed. How are they going to raise and lower it if those antennas are on the outside?
I don't know. I don't know anything about, raising and lowering flags, but...
Cord on the outside, how are you going to get it?
It has to be what?
Yeah, it would be different.
So.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, it was just an idea to try to maintain, keep the flag. So, okay, one other idea is that if the antenna could be moved up, the flag could be below it.
She already explained, though, why they can't move the antennas up. They can't-
Well, I don't know that she did.
Well, she did, because there are things within the tower
Okay.
above that,
Yeah.
that they can't.
Okay.
So she did explain.
All right, I'm just trying to come up with something where the flag could be maintained, because I do think a lot of people have raised really good points about that, and that people are going to be upset about it, and you're going to hear about it.
Okay, thank you.
Could I reply to what Carolyn said?
Okay.
We didn't hear the same thing. Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't hear the same thing. What I heard was that there's antenna there that can't be moved, all right? So they're not going to move it, but if there's new cable being routed and it's cut to order.
Well, cabling did not have anything to do with it, from my
There was
understanding.
other equipment on the inside.
There's
that
equipment
she
on the
did
inside
for other
which prevents
carriers.
them from mounting these outside, is this correct to the young
Well,
lady?
let me-
That they cannot move them up higher?
Maybe I can cut this off. Mark,
See, I'm
it-
still
let-
not
let's, okay, let's assume we got the answer or didn't get the answer. Are we even allowed to consider the answer in making the decision?
That has nothing to do with the flag.
That's the problem. I
And
mean,
that's
we,
all we're dealing with.
so, but we can't even consider the answer. So, Mark, let me ask you this. What are we allowed to consider in determining whether the flag could be removed or not?
If we want the flag or not.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, that's what we need to know.
So
So unfortunately, our state legislatures in their infinite wisdom have determined that the only thing we can consider is whether we want a flag or not. We can't consider any issue that you've raised here,
Oh, okay,
however
okay.
valid we might think it to be.
So we're not allowed to examine the structure because that's completely in the hands.
We can't consider that
We
information.
cannot.
I think it's
Oh,
just if
we
they-
should have.
Alternating design.
It's just if this tower needs to be disguised or not, is what it comes down
They
to.
have to meet
Yeah.
building code requirements, and as long as they meet those, that's about the extent of it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That was, I think, the first thing I said. I think it's a done deal. I don't think there's much we can do, but since we got into it so deep, I thought maybe there was a way for us to examine it, but it sounds like we're back to that, where there's no way for us to take a look at. All right, and the other thing I was gonna suggest, that flag used to be inside the pole. There's no reason why they can't put a separate tube on the outside to get that flag up and down, even with the new antenna. Because that's how they used to do it. I don't know, maybe you folks didn't know that, but hang on a second. That flag used to go up and down inside that pole. And then they changed it, and they put more antenna inside there, and they took up that space. So if they wanted to do that again, they would have to run a separate tube parallel to the existing one. So it can be done.
Possibly.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Any other questions or comments?
Last one. If the issue now is boiled down, again, Tom Fenner, if the issue now is boiled down to whether we have a flag or not, is that what it is?
Yes.
That's it.
That's all you're deciding?
Yes.
That's it.
I will tell you this, they will come up with a design that would meet that requirement. They want that place very badly. Don't forget that. You have the power to say, we want this, and we want it with a flag. And you should tell them how big the flag should be. They will come back and give you a design that would meet that requirement. So I would urge you very strongly to say, yes, we can work with you, but you're going to have a flag. You're not going to take the flag down. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything by board members? No other comments, questions? I'll entertain a motion. Anyone?
So move.
Is there a motion?
So what are we going to say? We want so move to have a flag or to not have a flag? Is that,
Allow them to remove the flag.
is that the
Allow them to
question?
remove?
What we're doing
There's
is-
a motion.
So it'd be a motion to approve.
Approve the
The
special
motion to
use
approve
permit.
the permit.
There's a first. Is there a second? If not,
I'll second.
okay.
We should vote on it, one way or another.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
Roll call.
Tony Eichelbach,
Aye.
Greg Scornia,
No.
Mark Fleesner,
No.
Tom Hobart,
Yes.
Sandy Lucy,
No.
John Borgman,
Yes.
Chuck Watson,
Yes.
Samantha Wacker,
No.
Helen Witt.
Yes.
5-4, approved.
Yep. Goes to council now.
On Tuesday,
Tuesday.
because of the holiday, it'd be Tuesday the 20th.
So that would be your next meeting to be at. Okay, moving on. Item number 4, case number 180201, annexation. Vic Horse Camp, annexing 4.19 acres of Weber Farms.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to do item 4, 5, and 6 as one presentation, and then I'll entertain motions as later.
they go,
Yep, all
yep.
3 separate, so. All right, this is the next phase of the Overlook at Weber Farms, the subdivision that is off of Weber Heights Drive that is continuing the development east towards Rabbit Trail. I know this is difficult to see on the screen there. This one's a little bit better because the streets are marked out. So this portion here is Plat 1. It was 32 lots. The roads are actually in. They have been taken over by the city and houses have started to go up. And so they are looking to start with Phase 2. It would technically be Plat 3 because there was an amendment earlier. But Plat 3 is the next 25 lots, which includes connecting Shirley Close Road, which is this road here, and Kensal Drive, which is this road here. So it's kind of a 3-part request. The first is a proposal for annexation of 4.19 acres. The second is to rezone 3.5 acres from R1A, which is this yellow zoning, to R1D, which is what this stripe zoning is. So the only difference between that, they're both single-family residentials. One allows, the R1A allows for a minimum of 10,000 square feet. The R1D allows for a minimum of 7,500 square feet. And then the third is for the preliminary plat, which is 25 homes on this newly annexed and newly rezoned property. So first is for the annexation. The tract to be annexed is 4.19 acres just southeast of the existing city limits. As you can see here, it's this shape of property. Here is the existing Shirley Coast Road. Here's the existing Kensal Drive. And so this piece here in between is what I have highlighted. Approximately in this area, there's a section line here. That's why that's not highlighted. It's a section line that runs through the county. For the annexation, it is adjacent to existing city limits. It does propose to have access through 2 existing right-of-ways. They are requesting it for it to be annexed as the R1D single-family residential zone district with the 7,500 square foot lots. Staff has no issue with that. That does match not only the use, but also the proposed lot size to the east here. We knew when the subdivision was coming in preliminary conversations with the developer that they were all along planning to kind of transition this neighborhood from larger lot to smaller because of Lake Washington to the north with the larger lots. And then Weber Heights is kind of a mix of large and small. So this first street is the larger lots, 1/4 of an acre, and then they're getting smaller as they get to the existing, connect over to the existing Malvern Hill off of Rabbit Trail, which is all 7,500 square foot lots. So the request to bring in this property as R1D is consistent with the master plan and it matches the surrounding area. The second request is to rezone this portion to the north. This is 3.58 acres. Again, it is property that is already in the city limits It will have access, again, Shirley Close Road and Kensal Drive. When this was annexed with the original phase, first phase of Weber Farms, and they originally brought it in as R1A as part of that transition to keep the larger lots to the north. But this portion of the property will actually be a little bit more dense, as you'll see with the plat. And so that's why they're proposing to rezone this portion from A to D. Again, we have no, staff has no issue with this. We recommend approval. It's slightly more dense. As you see, it's not actually, when you get to the plat, as dense as Malvern Hill, and it's not as large as Lake Washington or the lots to the north. So again, it's a good transition between the two subdivisions. And then lastly, their last request is a preliminary plat for the Weber Farms, or the overlook at Weber Farms Plat 3. It is 25 additional lots onto this subdivision. They do show a connection. So Shirley Close Road will terminate in a cul-de-sac, 96-foot wide, meeting the 2017 updated code. And then Kensal Drive will wrap around and terminate at Shirley Close Road. So all of these new lots will access Weber Heights Drive. They will not have, there is not a new connection to the neighborhood as we've mentioned in the past. However, when they first came in with this first phase, I think P&Z recommended and City Council approved that if they didn't make any connection to Beaker Road at this time, then they at least record the connection between Rabbit Trail and Weber Heights Drive. There was actually a pipeline that runs through this property that is out of commission, but it had to be removed. So apparently has been in the process of being removed in the past few weeks, is what I've been told. It's an old Conoco pipeline. But they did, in the meantime, when this was approved, get this portion of right-of-way recorded. And so this corridor is existing to show the connection in the future. So for now, this additional lots will add traffic to Weber Heights Drive. It won't help with our connection issues. However, they do, at least it's, I guess, a consolation prize. It's not two cul-de-sacs. They do show a connection. And then we do have the corridor to Rabbit Trail recorded for future use. So we're recommending approval. They show all the appropriate easements as needed between property lines. For stormwater, they do show stormwater swales that divert property to the off-site stormwater detention that has been approved as part of a previous phase. So that's why you don't see any stormwater as area designated by this plat. And then they also show all utility easements as needed, as well as the necessary right-of-way widths. One thing they don't note on the plat, and I mentioned it in my staff report, if you remember, we had a variance case on this subdivision a couple months back. I think it was in November, where they asked for a variance to increase the street grade on Kensal Drive and Shirley Close Road, as well as Graham Road further east. It was approved for an increase to up to 12%, but no more. So that is Kensal Drive, right before it connects here, is 12% existing, and so is Shirley Close Road. They have submitted construction plans as part of this submittal, and they do show that each of these streets do, at one point, have a max grade of 12%. We are recommending to continue the variance that was previously. The existing grade in these locations does exceed 12%, so they are at least bringing it down. Yeah, bringing it down to 12%. So they're not meeting the existing code of 10%. But as we talked about on a case-by-case basis, if they were to at least bring it down to 12 in an area that has previously had variances, we would recommend approval. So we saw no issue with that. We did have, if you see in my staff report, a condition of approval that they mention it, or they note it on the final plat. As of right now, it's not noted on the plat. And so we just want to make sure it's on there so there's no confusion in the future if they really did get the variance or if it was one of those things that kind of slipped through. So other than that, we have no comments or concerns. I do have, I think, the standard conditions of approval. Let me flip over to there. Oh, construction plans must show hydrants located at every intersection. The number of hydrants and the locations must meet minimum standards set forth in the development code. That was something we updated last March with the new code. They now have to be placed at intersections of the, they don't have to show that in the preliminary plat, but the construction plans that they submitted did not meet that minimum, so I just wanted to throw that in there so they were aware. And then documentation showing the off-site stormwater retention must be provided with construction plans. They have done that since we've put that note in there. So those are good. And the last thing is that note about the plat exceeding 10%, or the streets exceeding 10%. So that's all I have.
Questions or comments?
I have one.
Yes.
As usual, I always have one. The stormwater showing as the rock outlet?
Yes.
Is that the calculation you're talking about there? That all of the stormwater coming off of that development is coming through there the way the piping is shown? So is that that's not in the city limits, and I'm assuming that they own that piece of property?
They do.
Yeah.
So they're taking on, there's really no stormwater retention for that then, according to that. It's just dumping out onto bare ground?
John Nilgis, our city engineer, has reviewed the construction plans and said the stormwater hasn't been met per city code. Okay. So I can't necessarily answer that question directly, because I'm not sure exactly what that outlet's for, or if it's handling just that street or the whole development. But whenever we went through this before we sent out the packet, I actually double checked with him, because I kind of had the same question. I don't see anything on here for the actually retaining the water, and he said no, that the subdivision actually it's a joint between some of the stormwater for the villas at Weber Farms and the Overlook Weber Farms has a joint stormwater retention basin that has been handled. So
Okay.
the construction
This
plans
doesn't show that on our.
right, but there's a note on there that it's off-site stormwater retention. So that's all it needs to be for the preliminary plat. They wouldn't be able to break ground or get construction plans approved until they show proof of that off-site stormwater.
Very good.
On, back when we originally approved that overlook.
Yes.
That Halls Green Drive was going to be the one that was going to connect to Weber Heights Drive. Is that still the case? Or
That is. That's where the corridor is. So this is Halls Green.
Right.
And then here's Weber Heights. This is still the case.
That's still the case? They haven't come back with anything?
No. We were hoping that their next phase of this would be that section. The developer told us that the reason they weren't doing that was because of the pipeline. So now that it's gone, I would hope that this is the next phase. We are not conditioning this approval on that. That's something we could do. We did that on Rabbit Trail in the past, that as of right now, there can be no additional traffic onto Weber Heights, or I'm sorry, onto Rabbit Trail. There's no real room even to do so, but until that some connection either to Beaker Road or to here is made. We did not have that condition of approval on here this time. Really, it's the only reason we took it off is because we had that same condition on this original plat, that they had to make a connection before they had any new plats, and it was removed by City Council. So we thought, let's just go with what was approved last time.
Any other questions, comments of Sal? Anyone in the audience?
I have a question.
You should have sat up front tonight.
I've got to get my exercise in. It's on me about not getting enough exercise. I like that one up there. I have no complaints about the developments that's taking place. They're doing a pretty good job. I do own lot 17, which is attached to Kensal Drive.
Yeah, it's
2117 Kensal is
right here, I believe.
Address.
Right.
Nope, that's
On the
right
other
across
side?
the street.
Very top.
Oh, on the other side?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right at the top left is 17.
Top left right there, we have built a house there, and there are 2 homes built right straight across the street from ours.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question is, I was required to put in sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
The ones across the street do not have sidewalks. Are there sidewalks in what's being proposed here?
When we approve.
Why do I have to put in a sidewalk?
Because you're part of the Weber Heights subdivision.
I'm sorry, what?
Because you're part of the Weber Heights, you're part of Weber Estates.
So we're going to have back what we have now on Third Street, we'll have sidewalks that go for a while and then no sidewalks.
I live down the street from your house you have there.
Are you saying I should tear down my sidewalk then?
No, basically, part of the requirements for Weber Estates was to have sidewalks. when they annexed that in, what was approved was he would only have to build sidewalks down Weber
Weber
Heights
Heights,
Drive.
that is correct.
On one side of the street. So since it was a whole different
Doesn't make a lick of
subdivision.
sense.
Well, I know, but
Doesn't make a lick of sense.
that's what got approved. So I understand what you're saying. We live just down the street from you.
The sidewalks that you're talking about had
That's a
nothing
whole
to do with
different,
us.
that's a whole different subdivision, so they have a whole,
Hey, understand all of that.
Yeah.
I understand every bit of it.
I argued for it.
Now,
but-
he has now put a sidewalk in though on Weber Heights Drive on his side.
On the one side.
And that's what was required. It
That
was
was
a,
required.
So what are you gonna have him do when he hits that, the lot that's below those two, that's in Weber Heights? Now, are they going to have to put a sidewalk up Kinsel too?
Only on Weber Heights Drive, not on Long
No, the
Kendall.
ones he's talking about
That's
is
not in,
still part
that's
of,
not in there.
is still part of Weber Estates.
That's part of Weber Estates. You're telling me now that we're gonna have a sidewalk up one side and then we stop sidewalks.
well, I think the idea was to continue it. It just isn't, it's on one side of the street.
Oh,
It's not completely stopping the sidewalk.
Well, it's a whole different subdivision. So
Right.
according to what he's saying, that person that's on the corner,
Of
it's on
what,
the corner right here.
right
has to
down here,
build
at
a
39
sidewalk
and,
all the way from here, all the way up to here. And then those two people.
Right.
You're gonna end up with a patch quilt of sidewalks.
It will. Hey, I'm not
Right, it's-
I'm not afraid to say on record that I would love for a developer to be required to put sidewalks on every street, on every development. But unfortunately, that's,
Win that
I
argument.
understand that.
so,
Part of
we
Giving you a
would,
heads up right now that there
Right.
is a way that you could change this, you know.
I wanted sidewalks everywhere.
We would
We've
make
been-
it a requirement.
Well, we've been through that several times, several times.
yeah, it normally gets taken off, but.
Mr. Fenner, it's like, I argued for it back when,
I'm sorry, what?
I argued for it back when it was approved back then too, because like I said, I live just
Good.
down the street for you, but it is what.
Well, I
it
guess
is.
Washington's going to end up with a patch quilt of sidewalks then. That's what's gonna happen. That's a shame.
Yeah, we like to have
It's too bad.
sidewalks as possible where we can, but,
So you are saying though that down there on lot, the one that would be on the, it would be the it would be the southeast corner of Weber Heights Drive and Kinsel Drive. You're saying that that lot would be required to have,
all four corners of that intersection.
would be required to have both ways if somebody built on that eventually.
Part of the subdivision.
And as well as the lot below me, to the north of me.
Yeah, on all four quadrants
To
of that.
join on my
All four
sidewalk.
quadrants of that intersection. Yes.
So the sidewalk ends all sidewalks will end then on Kinsel, as far as we know, then all sidewalks will end at lot 17.
that's correct.
On the furthest south. Is that what you
Correct.
all are
Except that
approving?
the sidewalks will continue down Weber on one side.
Wow.
I will say the only silver lining is we were, in the original code we had, in the code revision, we put sidewalks required on all streets. It got taken out as to be too expensive for developers, and we at least got put back in that the developers have to grade the right-of-way to the edge of where a sidewalk would be. So if we are able to get a grant from, say, East West Gateway or from the Franklin County Road District, we could then put sidewalks in with that grant money, and there wouldn't be any concern with, well, you're grading out my yard. It's already graded. So at least we got a portion of it through. So, but that's
Yes.
kind of just how it is. So,
And those of us that love sidewalks are going to keep trying to get them.
Absolutely.
I understand where you're coming from, but that's just the nature of the beast.
I could go on for a few hours on that. I really could, but that's not good. That's not good planning. You know that. I know that. Well, do something about it.
Don't know why.
That's all I'm saying. Do something about it. You do have that power, you know.
Not tonight.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, We'll entertain a motion on number 4, case number 180201, the annexation.
Make a motion that we accept the annexation.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So move. Item number 5, case number 180202, Northern Star Homes rezoning 3.5 acres of the overlook at Weber Farms from R1A Single Family Residential to R1D Single Family Residential Subdivision.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 6, case number 180203, Northern Star Homes preliminary plat approval, the overlook at Weber Farms, Plat 3. All those, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve with staff condition.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 7, case number 180204, John D. Droege, preliminary plat approval, 111 West Main Street.
All right, this should be the easiest thing on the agenda tonight. So this is where John G's is, the old Droge's lot. Currently, the tap room and the beer deck are on one lot, as you can see here, highlighted. Here's the zoning, just so you know that there is 0 lot line, so there's no issue with how they want to cut up the property. They can have their buildings remain up to the property line. They are wishing to cut it into Lot A and Lot B. I know there's a lot going on that plot, so I highlighted what the Lot A and B would be. There's no minimum lot size, so there's no issue with one of them being much smaller than the other. They both have right-of-way frontage. And kudos to their surveyor here, because there was a lot of easements recorded over the years on this old property. There's a lot going on. That's what you kind of see all over this block. But so they maintain the access that goes across here to the, I think this is the Clay Camp lot, where the buildings collapsed. And then they also have this square here is a cross-access easement that gets between A and B. And then for some reason, there is some very narrow cross-access easement that was recorded years ago between right here. So they're remaining all their existing points of access, and there's no issue there. And like I said, they have the right-of-way frontage needed regardless of that. But as we both know, there's no vehicle access along Front Street to the tap room. So they're maintaining that through this drive here, and then technically through the, I guess this could be a pedestrian access here, is maybe why that was added. So real no concerns. You know, they're not proposing to build anything. They're actually the reason it's called the Condominium of the Missouri River Building is the name of the plat, is because they're doing vertical, they are separating the building into a condo vertically. Nothing we would even review there, but it has to be, they're separating these as well. So that's why it has to come before Planning, Zoning, and City Council. So
I don't understand why they did it this way. How does John G's, the tap room, or what, not the open bar, beer deck?
Yeah.
How do they meet their parking requirements?
It's C3, there are no parking requirements in downtown.
Okay.
Pretty easy to meet.
Yeah.
That is easy.
Yeah.
You got a building, you got a plan.
Any other questions,
What did you
comments?
say about doing something vertically?
They are condoing out the levels of the old Droge's for the apartments are, so they could sell out individual floors and actually for sale. Same way Andy's doing on his new buildings.
Oh, not vertical.
Well, you got John G's on the first floor, then you got apartments, and then you got Butch on the top.
It's vertical.
Just like they condo out,
He's going to have,
like, when I say vertical, I mean the lots are basically, it's almost like selling lots on top of each other.
Yeah.
he's going to have to
selling
work on
space.
those if
It's
he's
not
going to be
selling
in
vertically
competition with.
as a,
Yeah, right.
Because they were pretty,
it's,
right.
they're horizontal.
Pretty little.
It's interpretation
Yeah.
of vertical.
And all the steps.
You went outside to change your mind.
Yeah, the floors are, yeah, I guess that is confusing. They're-
Right.
The ownerships will be vertically on top of each other, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One on top of another.
There are some things I do know. Horizontal, vertical.
I probably should have phrased that differently.
Yeah, I mean.
Any other questions or comments by anyone? If not, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Any other business? If not, I'll entertain one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
I know that in our world
I can see the bridge
Vertically first and then horizontal.
I mean, I.
Really?
You don't want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
What took you